Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, March 9th Education Committee and Supplementary Regular Board meeting. I think I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Copeland, who's got lots to report.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Before we get into the presentations, let me just comment briefly on our school closure tomorrow. As the letter that I sent out to the parents and staff indicates, while the individuals who were told to self-quarantine provide no risk according to the CDC and the Montgomery Department of Health, because of this set of circumstances, I felt it was important to re-emphasize our cleaning schedule. If we had learned of this on Friday, we could have used the weekend and we wouldn't have had to have any interruption of instruction. But as this is a developing situation, we felt it necessary to take this extra step. And this probably isn't going to be the last set of circumstances we have. We're also taking a look at who uses our schools, our outside groups, our facilities, the decision as to whether to cancel some trips for the spring is a case-by-case basis, and that's going to be ongoing. And so as we balance the really important, obviously, health needs for the entire community, especially our children, against our school activities. We don't want to see our students lose their spring activities, but at the same time, we don't want to unduly place them into jeopardy. So as this national crisis, international crisis, continues to develop, we'll be looking for ways to mitigate as much as we possibly can. So I thank everybody for their cooperation, and let's hope that this is the last time we have to do that. With that, we have Mrs. Stout, who's here. Sarah Stout is a principal of Ballackinwood Middle School. And our middle schools all have thematic programs, which are really well received and are, even though they preceded our strategic plan, have very serious, strong elements to our strategic plan. So with that, Mrs. Stout has a proposition.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Thank you for having me here this evening. I'm excited to talk with you about an idea we have for our 8th grade thematic program at Ballackinwood. As you may be aware, one of the hallmarks of our district is really exceptional interdisciplinary programs. There are 3 interdisciplinary programs, one for each grade at Welsh Valley, and currently at Ballackinwood there are 2. We have a 1-year hiatus in 8th grade. There was a program that was called VOC, or Voices of Change, and student interest in that program had been declining generally over time, to the point that prior to this year, around this time last year, the administration determined that the program really needed to be looked at. An evaluation needed to be done to understand what the students wanted, what the students needed, and perhaps why there was the lack of applicants that we were seeing. And so we spent a significant amount of time this year studying that question, trying to learn what may have led to the lack of similar desire for that program as other programs, and to propose, which I'm doing now, another program for the 8th grade to fulfill a need. So as I'm sure you're familiar, this is the current 8th grade schedule. Students in 8th grade have 5 core instructional periods, and they have 2 kind of elective/specials periods. One, in 8th grade, students elect 2 of 4 courses: art, family, consumer science, computers, and tech ed. And then they have a rotation of courses that typically include health, PE, music, and then either another PE, another music. That's where we can fit in challenge, that's where we can fit in math supplement, etc. So we have core courses and we have elective courses. So here's a couple different ways an 8th grade student's schedule could play out. You could have a student who has Math 8 at period 1, period 2, they have art and computers, period 3, they have science. You see the yellows are their cores. This student has French. The student on the right, they have specials at period 2. The student is in integrated Math 1, and this student has an instructional support lab that replaces some of their specials. So what works well with our schedule is it's very modular. You can put in and design it to suit students' needs. So we've been thinking a lot, and we've been thinking a lot about what the future of school looks like. And I think we've all been really excited by some of the conversations we've been having about the new 5 to 8 middle school. And, you know, when I think about the Fielding-Nair book, one of the key quotes that sticks out to me is the familiar is not the future. That the school that you and I went to looks very similar in some ways to the school that exists today. And when you look at the beautiful design of that building, you realize the future of the school that's visioned is not the same environment that we went to school in as well. But I am the extremely lucky principal of a very beautiful, very traditionally looking school. So thinking about how the future is going to be different in that very beautiful school, we can really start making some of those shifts now. We can really start thinking about how the community design and the traditional building can come together to create some of those experiences for students. So our program proposes working for 48 students, which is the same number of students serviced in the other interdisciplinary programs in the district. What's different about this program is that it seeks to blend flexible time, space, and grouping. So we think of school traditionally as periods and bells ring and students move as groups from place to place. Part of our proposal is to think about students acting as a cohort with a group of teachers covering content, but maybe not being defined by specific space or specific bells. We are also really interested in a program known as Project Lead the Way. Project Lead the Way is a nationally recognized program. It is it's really the project-based STEM K-12 program out there. It's being used at many of our area schools. What I like about this program is there are modules developed, project-based modules that students can engage in pathways such as computer science, engineering, and they create something, and through the process they're learning science, math, computers, and technology standards. So our proposed program, it does not yet have a name. But the idea would be that it would cover Math 8, Science 8, Technology, and Computers in three sort of spans of time in the beginning of the day from approximately 8:15 to 10:45. Through that time, students would cover the standards in those courses as well as 3 Project Lead the Way modules in an integrated and thematic approach. We are pretty specific and thoughtful about why these courses, why this grade, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. We know that the project and skills learned through hands-on inquiry-based modules can really make science and math meaningful and interesting, and it can come to life really well. We know that when students use design thinking and engineering principles to solve problems, they tend to really enjoy that approach, and they enjoy learning in ways that helps make things make sense. The Project Lead the Way modules create an architecture for the program, and they add elements to our program that we currently don't have, such as software design, computer coding, robotics, areas that are actually gaps in our program, and we know that to be true. And one of the main things we want to do with our program is we really want to deepen the understanding of STEM concepts for our grade level math students. We know these are our students who maybe have not always seen themselves as mathematicians, or maybe aren't your most connected learner, maybe aren't the most connected in school, maybe aren't the students who feel brave enough to go join TSA or be part of Science Olympiad. Sometimes these are students we actually see sort of becoming disengaged from school, turning off a little bit, withdrawing a little bit. And so we do not have specific programming right now that targets our Math 8 students. They're about 1/3 of our total population, so about 1/3 of our students are in grade level math, right? 1/3 in integrated 1 and 1/3 will be in integrated 2. We know that our integrated math program, the implementation is going really, really well. And it's a really interesting and fun way to learn math. If you want to come over and see it, I'd be happy. It's really fun to be in math classes where there's conversations happening and students are solving problems and they're working in groups and they're thinking through patterns and why things are happening and problems that are taking a couple of weeks to solve. But at the end of it, students have a really in-depth understanding of math concepts. And I want to bring that for our Math 8 students. And that's really the heart and design of this program. I often see students who really love science, especially Science 8, which they launch rockets, they build cars, and they're learning really neat things, but oftentimes you'll talk to them and they get held up on the math. And so by bringing those two items together, hopefully it will allow for transference. So we know we have 370 eighth graders. 134 of them are targeted to be enrolled in Math 8 next year, meaning they're in Math 7 this year. And we know that of those 134, 64 of them have already said, I have a preference for computers or tech ed as one of my two electives. Many of them actually selected both. So I really believe that getting 48 students at least to be interested, I think we will have more than that. And as with the other programs, if we have more than 48 students, we'll move to a lottery setup. I've talked about the benefit and why I think particularly our Math 8 students have a space to grow. And I think I kind of hit on that in the last slide. So specifically, we're looking at some modules, some Project Lead the Way modules, one that talks about engineering design, another one that talks about principles of engineering, and that really overlaps well with the physics aspect of our Science 8 curriculum, and then as well as computer science principles. There's an app development, like a software application development and production module, which looks at software coding as well as like the aesthetics of software. So what it could look like is something like this. You would take the students' periods 1, 2, and 3, but we would not call them periods 1, 2, and 3. We would want to look at a block of time that would run from 8:15 to 8:45. And then at the end, and then after that time, the students would proceed with the rest of their day. One of the things that was very clear is that in 8th grade, students didn't want to be in a specialized program. They wanted to be a regular kid, and they felt like if they went to a specialized program, they weren't getting the regular experience. So this is sort of a hybrid. It gives students the best of both worlds. It allows them to go to their STEM block in the morning, and then they would proceed on team to social studies, English. They could have Spanish, they could have French, they could have ISL, what they need. Their two electives would be tech ed and computers, and then they would have science and social studies, essentially periods 1, 2, and 3. So in reality, you could divide up students in a lot of different ways, and here's just a few simple ways that I thought of. But the teachers would have the autonomy to group the children as they saw fit, depending on what the activity of the day was. So for example, here's a situation where students are getting ready to do something with rockets, and it's important to maybe understand linear equations as a function of part of that process. So maybe part of the group, 16 students, are with the math teacher, and they're doing a lesson on linear equations. 4 of the students are with their rocket group, and they're having a consultation on rocket design in a small group with the science teacher. And then the other students are in the tech ed lab, and they're building and testing their rockets, but they would have access maybe to some of the equipment we have in the tech ed lab. Another module, a model I thought of would be maybe sometimes you want to have a longer length of time. So maybe 18 students have a long lab. They have maybe the 2.5 hour block for working on the lab, and the other students are in 2 groups and they're working on graphing, but they're doing it in the computer lab, and they're solving algebraic equations, maybe using Excel or something of that nature to figure out how that would look practically applied. So there's we can do this in a staffing neutral way. So we know that students have to take math, they have to take science, and they would already have the elective. So as you figure out scheduling, we do it in a staffing neutral way, but there is a cost for the Project Lead the Way program. So there's an annual membership fee, essentially, to have access to their customer support, et cetera, of $950. And then each module has an estimated cost of $9,266. I'll add that part of that assumes that you have nothing, that you're starting from scratch. So for example, we have computers, we have some equipment and that sort of thing. So that cost might be lower as we go through. That is a one-time cost. And then given that there might be need for additional materials, because the 3 modules would be part of the program, it wouldn't be the entire program. There still would be extra time and space to do some additional things. So I think the program might need about a $500 allocation, which is similar to the allocation for the other programs. So that is the cost related to this project. And then with your with your endorsement, we would seek to move forward. I have begun talking at school around the ideas of this program in order to identify staff and participating staff members. There's some good energy around it. Teachers were very excited to hear about the idea of offering a program that targets grade level math students. They saw that as a need as well. And definitely staff members that are interested in working with the program. So it's going to be a matter of, I think, identifying some really great teachers for that. And then we would move and we would present to the Math 7 students to try to get them excited to be interested in this program. We would want to have parent information sessions for parents. We would follow up with students who selected tech ed and computers to make sure they understand the overlap of this. We would do a lottery if needed, and then we would do the fun work of planning to implement in September. So that is why I was here, and your questions.
So this is Sarah's first year as principal, her second board presentation in a row, and she seems comfortable at BC.
Well, we're always happy to have you here, Mrs. Stout, so it's great to see you.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert.
Do we have some questions from the board? Go ahead, Ms. Ackman.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Dr.
This is very exciting, and I really appreciate your product market fit research and really understanding culturally what the kids are willing to do in 8th grade and how they don't want to be like isolated in a program, but integrated in. I have two questions. Of those 64 students, do you know how many identify as women? Because one fear I have is this might over-index to boys, and which, I think is fine because people are expressing their interest, but I would hate to see this become majority one gender, and have you thought about ways to mitigate that? And then my second question is, for kids who are not in grade level math and are really into like all this stuff, is there any way they could have access to robotics, or is that already in the curriculum, or are you thinking of another way to kind of feed that interest? Thank you. And this is very exciting.
Thank you. Really great questions. So we did take some initial looks at the demographics of the 134 students that make up the Math 8 cohort, and I think it's slightly skewed generally towards boys, like 58%, right? So not extremely skewed. So it'll eventually be a lottery, so I can't control who enters the lottery and who gets selected, but we can work on recruitment to make sure that the lottery represents as many people as possible. And so we would work towards that as well. We also look to make sure that they would represent a diverse portion of the population. It does, and we also made sure that that pool included students with special needs, and it would. So I share your concern, and I actually wonder if this might give some of our girls a little bit more of a space with that. Yeah.
They'll feel more comfortable to explore these things in a way they wouldn't otherwise by joining TSA, which I know has girls in it too, but just middle school is when it seems like we tend to lose more girls and gain more boys, and I don't know why. So thank you for being thoughtful about that.
Absolutely. And your second question related to robotics and other opportunities for more students. And so I think that's generally something that certainly with the 5-8 program committee we're looking at as we think about and imagine what the specials could look like within the new 5-8 program, and looking for more space to grow that. And so part of it is taking a look at these Project Lead the Way modules and seeing, what they provide. Would they allow us to enhance some of our special offerings, or are there things we could learn from that and, enhance some ideas that we already have? So this is very much being done in conjunction with the 5-8 committee and with an eye towards what the very short near future brings. So, yep.
Thank you. You already answered the first question a little bit around the diversity and just ensuring that it's a diverse, or at least represents the full student population. I'm curious, in terms of the students having an interest in being in a larger team, that when it comes time for the social studies English, sort of the latter half of the day, are they then divided into the existing teams? Is one of the existing teams a little bit smaller so that it can subsume all of those students? Like, how does that work where they still have that opportunity to be part of a larger group?
Are you okay? So we estimate that each team will have around 92 students per team. And so if you think that 48 members of the team would be part of this block, and then as you consider where students go throughout the day, the fifth variable of a language and or ISL and or reading provides some ideas for diverse grouping as well as placement of the math for the other students. And so the team would be 92 children. Of that team, around half would be part of the STEM block in the morning, and then they would proceed through the rest of their day. So let's say, the science teacher on the team is, Mrs. Smith, and she's a member of Team 8X. These students would be members of Team 8X, and they would have Mrs. Smith for science, but they would also have the 8X social studies teacher and the 8X English teacher. And then some other students on the team would have Mr. X for science in the afternoon, because Mr. X in the afternoon would be teaching the traditional Science 8 course on the X team.
Just more of a comment. Thank you for the presentation. I like this program a lot. My only question is more maybe not for how you've designed it today, but a very personal bias on my side is being able to explain the engineering that you've done. And I find that so I'd like to, perhaps when you've got this thing running, not making this an English class, but not also making, it's not your intent either to make it devoid of English, because building a rocket is one thing, describing how you've built the rocket and selling it is an entirely different thing. So I'm hoping that with time you can kind of bring some of that into this a little bit. That's all. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. And I think one of the reasons, a couple thoughts on that. One is the Project Lead the Way modules have a communication component where members of the community are invited in to learn about what the students present. So there's a presentation component with it. That is also similar to the model that's used in TSA. And so as some of our students might be able to tell you, there's very much a communication component along with that. And particularly in designing this program, kind of thinking about how TSA approaches things with the communication component as well. So in science classes now, we often have a presentation component, and I think that could be enhanced by having extended time and extended teachers to work in small groups with students to, do that really well.
And if we can find a patent attorney with an engineering background to help, we'll do it.
I had a quick question. I'm singing in the chorus of this sounding like a fantastic program, and I just wanted to know what would be the minimum number of students you'd need to make it go, because I really would love that to happen.
Probably, we would have to look at our numbers, but probably like 40, I would say. 48's ideal. We could probably make it work with 40. I think when you start getting below 40, it puts a significant impact kind of in some other areas, so we might have to consider our design a little bit. But hopefully, I'm optimistic that we'll have more than that, and we'll be using that lottery. But yeah.
Thank you.
So I just want to say I think this is a terrific program. I really like this idea of focusing on the kids who are in Math 8. I think that group is, so there are lots of different programs for different kids with different types of interests, and I think it's great that we would be having a program directed in that way. And I also think it's great to be experimenting with this idea of having these students more included with the other 8th graders, because we know that's always been an issue. And I think this might be a program, obviously we're going to have the new school, and that we might want to even replicate. So I think this is great it's a great idea, and I hope that it generates the interest in the students that you're expecting. So
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
thank you.
Have a great evening.
Next presentation is on the gender expansive and transgender curriculum. So our newly minted Director of Elementary Education, Dr. Jennifer Gaudioso. Tried to give you a nice slow walk up. There you go. All right.
Thank you. Newly minted indeed. I get to share really the culmination of some work that was completed through the leadership of Mark Klein. And what's really been exciting is it was a nice way to get to know the district, get to know some teachers, really looking at, really some exciting work that's been done in the area of supporting students in health education and really making an inclusive environment and experience for students that are gender expansive or transgender. So the district has a really robust and positive policy related to, and philosophy related to inclusion and belonging. What's very exciting about this work is that it is really where philosophy and policy are put into action. And what's impressive about the work that the teams have conducted here is that it really was, it's very student-centered first. Secondly, it was very teacher-led. The teachers, in reflecting on how to be more inclusive, how to support students, really came together to improve certain areas of the health curriculum. So this is not a look at the entire K-12 scope and sequence of health education, but a couple snapshots of experience that our students have in 5th and 6th grade that really have been redesigned to support them. So the context of the work is the health education curriculum in grades 5 and 6, looking at standards alignment, best practices, additionally the design of instruction, and making sure that it's all grounded in the philosophy and policy of the district. The guiding philosophy that was undergirding the work aligned with the district philosophy related to inclusivity and belonging. And a lot of the language that's in the district website is actually the language that is the content of the 6th grade lesson. And a lot of the inclusive language that was the redesign in the 5th grade also was aligned with some of the guiding language on the website. Additionally, the GSIB group, gender, sexuality, inclusivity, and belonging were involved in some of the discussions, guidance, and leadership, and both of the groups worked with Dr. Jeannie Stanley as a consultant, who was just phenomenal. So the two areas that were the focus areas of curricular enhancement were the 5th grade lesson on growth and development. And that has had a long history of occurring in 5th grade. It has different iterations over the years. And some of the concerns related to past practices were really just, the old model of maybe segregating students, using language that was, all boys, all girls, was not really inclusive to all students. Additionally, the expertise and comfort level of teachers in addressing some of those topics was something that Dr. Stanley was really able to provide some leadership and guidance. The 6th grade lesson on gender and identity was part of the existing board-approved textbook that all the 6th grade teachers used. And the 6th grade teachers, in reflection on their practices, wanted to come together and create a more aligned experience for students. So the 5th grade lesson, the old model really didn't meet the needs of students, and it had a very different models year to year with different teachers responsible for instruction, sometimes nurses, counselors, teachers, depending on the comfort of the teachers as well as the curricular materials in use. The goal for the lesson was to improve the design, make sure that it was an inclusive experience for the students, and really make sure that it was engaging to students and aligned across the district. So Mark Klein worked with Dr. Stanley, a team of teachers, and they worked together to design a vision for the program. And the team of teachers ended up moving to Lankenau Health Education Center as an option. The Health Education Center has a Life Begins program that other neighboring districts have also used. The program is, one, very engaging to students, and two, very focused on science. So it's more of a science lesson than just the growth and development, the talk, as some of the kids may have experienced it. And to achieve the unified experience, the team of teachers went to the Health Education Center, observed, had some interaction with the team there. Dr. Stanley and Mark Klein talked with the team about even their use of inclusive language to make sure that that was part of the experience for our students. An example of that might be, where they'd say, talk to your moms and dads, and the language was, talk to parents. And, some of those statements that might have been an all boys experience this, all girls experience this. The team worked with Lankenau, who is very receptive to this, to really make sure that the language in use was inclusive to all of our students and very developmentally appropriate. So it addresses maturity, changes in development. It does address pregnancy, but not how one becomes pregnant. So it's appropriate for the age level, but really addresses the topic in a comprehensive way that's much more robust in terms of science education than what the students were previously experiencing. And we see this as a way that we can build a foundation for continued curriculum work in this area and perhaps align with the body systems unit in science. So it gives us a vision for what this program could be in 5th grade, unifies the experience, and also builds the expertise and the common vision for the team of teachers. In 6th grade, all of the teachers had common resources, but in terms of the classroom instructional design experiences, it varied across the district, and the teachers really wanted to work together to align practice and to develop some common resources so that as students were moving through the program, you could feel confident that everybody had similar exposure, similar conversation, and that the teachers all had the same level of expertise and comfort with the topic. So they worked closely with Dr. Stanley. Their goal was to design the common student experience aligned with standards, inclusive practices. The topic of the chapter, the lesson that was the focus area of this work was, it's 18.1, it was aspects of sexuality, and really focuses on those 4 areas, biological sex, gender, sexual orientation, experiences, and thoughts. So that's much of the big idea of the content there, matches that slide I shared previously, that matches the inclusivity and belonging language on our district website. Additional focus areas in the chapter include respect for others, understanding, and really helping students to consider their own experiences, but also be tolerant, respectful, and understanding of the experiences of others. So the 6th grade team, they also came together. They worked as a department team. They worked with Mark Klein. They worked with Dr. Stanley, created a draft lesson plan. They had feedback from the 6th grade teachers across both schools, and the consultation lesson evaluation with Dr. Stanley occurred to ensure the alignment to best practices, standards, and policy. So lesson implementation is occurring in the spring. The 5th grade lesson at Lankenau, they are half-day lessons. The students will be taking field trips at the end of the school year. They'll be going the end of May, beginning of June, visiting for half-day experiences. And the 6th grade lessons, those are starting actually this week. Letters have gone home for the 6th grade experience, giving parents the opportunity to preview materials, talk to their child, and also have they have online access to the textbook, so if they want to see what children will be talking about, they can support their child with conversation at home. And the 5th grade letter will go home later in May. There's also some information from Lankenau that can accompany the letter so parents can see a description of the program. And Lankenau is also very welcoming to parents. If they want to go see the program, they are welcome to visit the Lankenau program and actually see the lesson when it's being offered to other schools, other students. So those lessons will occur this spring. Our plan is to reconvene teams at the end of the school year and have teachers reflect on how the lessons went, make some suggestions for continued improvement, refinement for next year based on the team input. The fifth grade conversation may be longer as we try to decide, do we want to enhance our own practice here and use that as a foundation for curriculum development in that area, or would we want to continue enhancing our own curriculum with perhaps the body systems unit and use that as a culmination? So that will be some of the ongoing conversation and discussion once the students all have this experience this year. Any questions?
Thank you very much for the presentation. We appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions right now? Shana?
Just as we were talking earlier about gender and identification, I was wondering if the district has in place any kind of support process for students and teachers if, while we're approaching this, they have students who are transitioning genders in school sort of during this time or in the younger grades to coincide with this program.
One of the representatives on the committee was a guidance counselor who gave some input into the whole process unfolding through her interactions with a student. So in terms of a formal process, I'm not sure if that's what you're asking. I think the more common process would be the guidance counselors and teachers knowing the students, communicating with the parents.
So we actually have a very well-developed policy. I think we were the second in the state to culminate with that, but maybe Megan, do you want to?
I figured we had something, I just didn't know exactly what it was and figured this would be a good
Yeah.
time.
Well, we've got policy, and then you got Megan.
Okay, Megan is what I want.
To add to what's already in place, and we have guidance counselors, we have a robust professional learning plan that ensures that our staff across the district are all aware and should be responsive or receptive to a student approaching them or having, concerns or questions or want to know, what steps they need to take to address any questions or issues that they're having within the schools. So I think beyond just counselors, which are, certainly the initial go-to staff members, that staff across the district are prepared to, meet and students and address whatever needs they have, especially coinciding with the policy that puts a number of structures in place to support
And Megan,
students and families.
there's a group of parents and teachers and so forth that they meet on a
Yes.
somewhat regular basis and give input to the district on.
Yes, and it was referenced during the presentation, our GSIB working group meets monthly and takes input from parents, from staff, to ensure that we're meeting the needs of students in a myriad of ways across the district. So.
That's fantastic, thank you.
So, thank you very much. I think we would, look forward to hearing a report, back in the curriculum when you see how the program is progressing. We would be
Absolutely.
interested, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you so much. At this time, if anybody would like to come up from the audience and have a question or a comment, please come up and sign in and state your name and generally where you live, and if you and have 3 minutes. We'll start with Ms. Jenkins. I think there's only 3 people. It's fine. We're good. So that's true.
I'm Ruth Jenkins. I live in Wynwood. One question about the program. Do you need, suppose a parent does not wish their child to participate in this program, can they opt out? Do they need permission slips? Is there some kind of requirement as far as that's concerned? My second question has to do with the sleep study, which I don't know whether it's a fait accompli at this time, but one of the things that was missing from the sleep study is my bailiwick is gender identification. Is there a difference in the high school girls versus the high school boys based on the development of the girls. So the young ladies are, by middle school, pretty more advanced than the boys. And does that affect their sleep cycle versus the boys' sleep cycle? Are we making all of these changes just for the boys? Thank you.
Thank you. Do you?
I think in terms of the opt-out, there is parents get the opportunity to opt out, correct? Yes. In terms of the sleep study, I'd have to respectfully disagree. There was some discussion about adolescent girls and their particular needs, and so I think that was well represented beyond just boys.
And it's, yeah, we've been talking about the fact that girls tend to develop earlier, and because they hit puberty earlier, their sleep needs may increase at an earlier, which is one of the discussions around which option may work best and for which groups of kids. So, but thank you for the question.
Okay. Hello, my name is Sam Catania. I'm a student at Harriton High School. Obviously, like the district student council is responding and creating contingency plans based around the coronavirus, I wouldn't say happy about the decision tomorrow, but we think it's the right one to protect the safety of our students. I just wanted to go over two things really fast. One, I wanted to clarify the message that was sent to families today, which says that because the individuals are not showing any symptoms, they pose no risk of transmission. According to the World Health Organization's website, the risk of catching COVID-19 from someone with no symptoms is very low. However, many people experience only mild symptoms, like a cough, which would typically be seen in a cold or just a regular flu. And so it's definitely not no possibility. And so I think that that's not a major error or anything like that, but I just think it's something that should be corrected for the benefit of public understanding about the disease. Not that I'm a doctor or anything like this, but just for clarification purposes. The second thing, and I know the district has already expressed a commitment to this in their contingency plan, which I applaud. I had a student come up to me today and they said, what's going to happen if we're out of school for an extended period of time to the students who are on free and reduced lunch? What's going to happen to the kids who don't necessarily have Wi-Fi access at home? And so I told that student that I would definitely commit to coming to the meeting tonight, making sure that was, it was very clear that needs to be a priority. Kids are depending on the school district to eat, to be fed, to have access to the internet, and it's just very important that we obviously keep our students safe, keep them home if it poses a health risk. I think the district has a strong commitment to that, and also consider the implications and workarounds we can do if students are at home to make sure they have access to all the resources they need. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Graham Branscombe. I'm also a student at Harriton. And I just had two things for today. One was I wanted to thank everyone for their help with Dr. Harriton. It was a tremendously successful event. We raised over $60,000. It was our second junior ever to win, so it was unique in many areas. And the second reason I wanted to speak was regarding Venmo, PayPal, and other fintech platforms that clubs and teams use for fundraisers. I know with student council we do have our own Venmo dedicated to us, but there's no formalized process in terms of setting one up through the school. I know many other clubs, if they're selling, for example, at the breakfast table, they'll take Venmo, but it'll be to someone's personal account. It's not through the school. There's no way to make it official or to verify any of the transactions going through it. So to ask a question directly, I was wondering, I personally don't know too much about what the district has currently done in terms of making sure that there is a formalized process for clubs being able to use these platforms. But I was wondering what the current status was on that. And just to further, my advisors, he was explaining that we spoke to our own administration about this, and they were explaining how we weren't able to set an account up through the school. The only platforms that they have currently are My School Bucks. But we definitely, it came to our concern just with student council, we're really good at keeping track of everything, but we wanted to make sure that other clubs can do so, and that they can do so under the supervision of the school. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to?
Sure. So in terms of the wording of the letter, we really vet through the Montgomery County Health Department, correct?
So the information that we received from the health department was that those people who had been exposed that had a connection to the district posed no health risk to our students. And this was due to the timing of their potential exposure and then their subsequent interactions with school district facilities. We can't get really more specific, but that was the reason that no risk was put in there.
We tend to make these words come from the public health officials. In terms of the free and reduced lunch, we are working on that. We've been working on ways to deal with that. Haven't got an answer for it, but we are working on it. Congratulations on Dr. Harridan. I think you all deserve a lot of credit. Graham, I know PayPal. I don't know Venmo. And I'm working hard at this stuff, but I have never been able to get the Venmo account set up properly. But I will talk to Mr. Orlando when he gets back. I don't know what the intricacies of that besides school bucks are, because I can't get mine to work.
I think he's saying he'll look into it. That's the other way of that. So, yeah, no, thank you, and thank you both for coming this evening, as always. So, upcoming meetings, we have the March 12th Facilities and Purchasing Committee at 8:30 a.m., March 16th Regular Business Board meeting at 8 p.m., March 18th Communications Committee meeting at 7 p.m., March 25th Finance Committee meeting at 8:30 a.m., and that's to review the operations budget, and then March 26th Intergovernmental meeting at 7 p.m., and the school district is hosting. And with that, we are adjourned. So thank you, everyone.